everybody. We're going to get started. Please take your seats. We're going to start off tonight with a little media clip entertainment.
Oh my God, okay, I have this story that I've been waiting to tell you for the past couple of days. So have you ever done yoga before?
Yeah, a couple times.
So I went to this new place, super fancy. It's like $17 a class, $2 to rent a mat. I've never even heard of that before.
Is that the one up on Cap Hill?
No, this is my new neighborhood. I moved to Finney Ridge.
Finney Ridge.
Okay, so you know what Shavasana is? It's at the end of class, you just get to lay, they turn the lights off, your eyes are closed, and it's silent, and it's kind of supposed to be meditation, except that I have undiagnosed ADD. Normally it's like 2 minutes, maybe 5 minutes if they're being nice. This one just keeps going and going. Like 5 minutes in, this woman starts snoring. 2 minutes later, somebody loudly farts in the middle of Shavasana. Nobody even laughs, so I don't laugh, because I don't want to be the weirdo who's laughing in the middle of class. Hey, so class ends, and I'm thinking, I don't even know if I want to go back here. It's kind of a weird place. Would you put that thing away?
What? I'm just checking my phone.
It's really annoying.
What?
So we thought we'd give you that little teaser to give you a sense of what the evening might bring. Welcome, everyone. My name's Kathy Koo. I'm the Challenge Success Executive Director as of, thank you. As of March of this year, it is a huge treat for me to be here. It is a huge treat for me to see how many people are out here and have come to this event tonight. We have close to 1,500 parents, educators, clinicians, students in the room. We're going to jump right into content, but I wanted to make a few introductions and express a few appreciations. First of all, I'd like to introduce our co-founders, Dr. Madeline Levine up front. Dr. Denise Pope up front. And Mr. Jim Lebdell. I'd also like to acknowledge and introduce our board chair, Ms. Charlene Margot. Charlene and our board of directors and our advisory board members have been extremely instrumental in helping lend their expertise to Challenge Success. We thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight as well. I'd also like to thank our corporate sponsors who are helping to underwrite this event. We have Oculus here as our lead sponsor. Thank you, Oculus, for supporting us. Oculus is an independently run company within Facebook who is really the leader in virtual reality technology. They're creating very immersive user experiences in the areas of gaming, of movie making, storytelling, travel, education, and their tagline is they're making user experiences for anyone, anywhere, through the power of virtual reality. So thank you again for sponsoring us at the lead level. I'd also like to thank Symantec for sponsoring us at the champion level. Thank you, Symantec. Symantec was founded in 1982 and really is a pioneer in helping to protect our security in the digital world. They anticipate the next level of threats or attacks against our networks, our internets, our websites, and in our cloud. So very related to the topic at hand. Also to our other anonymous champion sponsor, thank you. And of course to all of our individual sponsors, ticket holders who came tonight to help underwrite the event. We really thank all of our sponsors for helping to make this event affordable to as much of our community as in the public as possible. So thank you again. I'd also like to just take a moment and thank our staff and our tireless volunteers who have been working endlessly to make this whole conference site embracing for everyone and inclusive of as many of our school teams and our families and our community as possible. And I think with that, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Denise Pope and Dr. Madeline Levine. Among many things, Dr. Pope is a senior lecturer here at the Graduate School of Education. She's the co-founder of Challenge Success. She is author of the book Doing School and a co-author of Challenge Success book Overloaded and Underprepared. Dr. Madeline Levine is a clinical psychologist, a co-founder of Challenge Success, the best-selling author of Price of Privilege and Teach Your Children Well. And with that, I ask them to come to the stage.
All right. I don't know if we're both using this mic or not, but I will go first, and I will say welcome to our 13th annual Challenge Success Conference. 13 years. Can't believe it. So in case you don't know the difference, I'm Denise, this is Madeline. And we're going to do a quick game called Raise Your Hand If, and I'm going to kind of peer out under the lights here. So raise your hand if you have kids or grandchildren in elementary school or younger. Raise your hand. Okay, that's a lot. How about middle school? High school? College or older? Okay, good mix here. Raise your hand if you are an educator or a clinician or anyone who works with kids. That's a lot too, right? Okay, raise your hand if this is your first Challenge Success event. Wow, welcome. All right. Well, for those of you who don't know us, we have been working with schools and families since 2003, and we provide kids with the academic, social, and emotional skills they need to succeed now and in the future. And the reason we're called Challenge Success is because we challenge that very narrow notion of success that our society has been propagating, that success is measured by performance and grades and test scores and where you go to college, and we're challenging that narrow notion, and we're saying that real success is much broader. It is not achieved just at the end of the semester, but over the course of an entire lifetime. And we have a three-pronged approach. Yeah, you can clap for that. We have a three-pronged approach, for those of you who don't know us, of how we bring this about. The first thing we do is we work with schools, and we provide research-based strategies for policy changes, like changing the homework policy, changing the bell schedule, which has a lot to do with stress and engagement with learning, talking about who should be in advanced placement courses or how many should you take, academic integrity policies, project-based learning, alternative assessments, test and project calendars, and in particular, establishing our schools as climates of care, where the teachers care about you, where the kids are in a caring environment, where everybody feels safe and ready to learn and be engaged. And this year, we are excited to host 35 teams of students, teachers, parents, and administrators, counselors from all over the country who are going to be they're in the audience now, but they're also going to be joining us tomorrow for a full day of workshops to develop plans and policies to increase the health and well-being of their kids at their schools and increase engagement with learning. And this year, it's really quite exciting. We have teams from the Bay Area. Of course, we always have teams from the Bay Area. We have teams from Southern California, Washington, Arizona, Alabama, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Texas, Montana, and even Hawaii. We are thrilled to have them here. Another important component of our work is our research. And we benchmark our progress using school surveys to know if sort of where they stand and how our actions have been helping them. And we find and translate the latest research on best practices for schools and best practices in terms of parenting. And we're going to give you a card when you leave here at the end of the night that has our website on it and where to go if you want more information or guidelines. If you're a parent, we have videos for you, we have courses, we have books you can read. For a teacher, we have videos for you, we have courses, and how you can all help to have your children and your students thrive. And then the third piece of what we do is community education, which is what tonight is all about. So tonight's theme is media rules, healthy connections in the digital age. And here, I don't know if you got this, but we're playing on the three different definitions of the word rules. So the first is media rules, right? Like it's cool, it rules, it's awe-inspiring, it's truly positive, it's a positive force in all of our lives, right? The second is the notion of media rules, like what are the rules that we should know as parents, teachers, clinicians, and kids that help keep us safe and healthy and allow us to have strong connections and positive relationships in the digital age. And then the third meaning, and this definitely relates to me as a mom of 3 kids, is that sometimes it can seem like media rules all of our lives, that it can be overwhelming, especially for the non-digital natives like us, that it can feel a little bit like uncharted and unprecedented territory for parents and teachers to navigate. So let me ask you this. Raise your hand if you could relate to the woman in the video. How many of you have had the experience where you're trying to connect to someone in conversation and found them preoccupied with technology? All right, now, we'll see how honest you are. How many of you have ever been in the position of the man in the video, multitasking, checking emails, social media sites, playing games, when you really weren't supposed to be doing those things, right? The whole point of tonight is we are here to help. We're going to hear from Madeline, and Catherine is going to do a keynote. We're going to have a high school junior who's with us from Massachusetts give us a little talk as well. And then in the second half of the program, we're going to do something completely different this year. So some of you who have been here in years past know that sometimes we give you parenting scenarios, you take out your phone and you vote, and we kind of are on a panel and we talk about that live. In honor of tonight's theme, in the spirit of media, we're actually asking you to silence your phones and put them away tonight. We're doing something completely different. We have students from Piedmont High who will be performing short vignettes that we'll have you discuss with a partner, and then we'll hear from panelists on tips and guidelines on how to handle these kinds of scenarios at home. Now, we're not going to be able to cover every aspect of media use in your life. That is a lot for an hour and a half. But our hope is that you'll leave here with some new ideas, with some practical advice, and with some research-based strategies to improve the way you and your family members interact and connect via media. So, without further ado, I want to turn things over to Madeline, my fellow co-founder, who's going to help us get started on tonight's conversation.
Okay, you and I have to change spots.
I think so. We'll change spots. Okay.
Okay, this will... oh, I'm mic'd. I'm mic'd.
Okay, well, whatever.
I don't need
It's all
this.
good. It's all good.
Yeah,
Go
okay.
ahead.
So, in the spirit of sort of full disclosure, which I like to do, I had drinks with Catherine the other night, and she's a good friend, and so I had some, and I've read her book, which you all should read, Big Disconnect, and so I had a good sense of what she would be talking about. And I decided that it would make sense to try an experiment on myself. And that was, I keep my phone right next to my bed, the justification being that both my husband and I have sick moms, and so I needed close by. But I decided that for one night I would try and not reach for my phone as soon as I wake up in the morning. And I thought that would be like really, really easy. It's like one night and Catherine Steiner-Adair is here and I can do that. So I even turned it upside down. I'm a writer, I go to sleep late and I wake up late. So by the time I wake up, there's usually 40 emails or something, and I do them in bed before I get out of bed. And I decided, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do a little stretching and listen to John Kabat-Zinn for 10 minutes, you know, tell me to let my thoughts go. Okay. So that's the plan. I wake up and it's like muscle memory, you know. I reach for the phone. And I can't tell if I'm trying to process, I can't tell if it's anxiety, is it muscle memory, is it habit, but what I see is Margaret Dunlop's name. Now, Margaret Dunlop is our school programming director, and tonight is programming, right? So it's like, oh my God, I can't let that go, so I text her back, which begins a cascade of texts between myself and Emery Handler and Margaret. And I realized that the cascade has to do with this, and it's kind of a hard admission, but it's true. The cascade is, am I being cute or funny or grateful enough or thankful? It's the adult version of the concern about popularity. You know, I could have just answered with a yes, to whatever the question was, but I didn't. I wanted to be better than that. And I think it gave me a sense of what happens in my office when kids come in time after time. And remember, I've spoken at almost 300 schools around the country, and I've never had a Q&A, never, where some parent hasn't asked me a question about media, right? We are all here to hear something about what are the rules, what's good for our kids, what's not so good for our kids. But in my office, when I bring up media with kids, there's a standard response, and that is, don't talk to me, talk to my mother, or talk to my father. The concern is, I can't get my mother's attention. The concern is...
They want you to speak into this.
You can't hear me?
Sorry.
Yep.
Tell us earlier next time. We'll do it. Okay.
Yeah, thanks. Well, if you missed it, I'm sorry, but we're on a tight schedule.
It was really good.
The point is that I had difficulty controlling myself around my cell phone. And parents are always worried about their kids, but kids are also, in my office, always worried about their parents. And I'll just give you one example. I was working with a Silicon Valley C-level guy, and he had a baby, and he was talking about how he couldn't put down the phone. So we struck a deal, because floor time is really important, that he would give a half hour a day on the floor with his kid. And he comes back the next week and he said, you know, Dr. Levine, you can make me be on the floor, but I'm only thinking about my cell phone. And Catherine had the wise words yesterday, did you tell him to fake it till you make it? Which was pretty much what I did. Because you know, you can hear this and still not be present. The point is to be present. So I have a deal with myself, which is that tomorrow, once again, I will try and wake up and stretch and listen to John Kabat-Zinn, and I bet that every time he says, have a thought and let it go, it will be about my cell phone. But I'm going to try and do it. Okay, thank you so much.
All right. So it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to really an international expert on this topic. Dr. Catherine Steiner-Adair is a clinical psychologist. She's a school consultant. She's an author. Her award-winning book we have outside for you to purchase, and she's going to do a book signing for us at the end. It's called The Big Disconnect: Protecting Childhood and Family Relationships in the Digital Age. And it identifies digital age challenges for parents and educators and ways to strengthen children's social and emotional development to help them grow to be responsible, resilient, confident, capable young adults. She speaks and consults all over the place on a wide range of topics. For 30 years now, I think she's presented at more than 500 schools, countless conferences all over the world, television, radio. She's contributed to Huffington Post, CNN, Opinion, Parent.org, Courts.com. I mean, on and on and on. And you're in for a treat. She also has a private practice in Chestnut Hill. So she's a working clinician. She's also a research associate in the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and an associate psychologist at McLean Hospital. We are honored to have such an expert on this topic on this side of the U.S., and she hangs out on the East Coast. Will you please help me give a warm welcome to my friend, Catherine Steiner-Adair.
So one of the great things about coming to a conference like this for me is I get to hang out with my dear friends, both Denise and Madeline. And thank you so much for inviting me out. I am such a fan of their work. I cannot tell you. You have to buy both books if you haven't read them. And Madeline's books, too. I mean, this is such a rich environment. And I can't think of a better organization through which to really begin to have a conversation to help us all kind of push the pause button and challenge ourselves to think about, are we using these great new devices, which are truly wonderful, to be our best selves? And are we using them in education to facilitate really new, creative, innovative, great ways of thinking? Now, we are all living through a revolution. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way at all. We're saying hanging out in our kitchens, in our bedrooms, in our living rooms. We're with each other. We're laughing. We're talking. We're telling stories. We're playing games. But what is different is we are not doing it with one another. We're playing words with friends someplace else. We're in a game with someone far away. We're having a wonderful conversation, if you're me, with my kids who live in different time zones. But it has totally changed how we gather as a family and how we gather around the dinner table, and as we saw, how we gather in conversations. And it's such a paradox because, on the one hand, never before has it been so divinely possible to be connected to everybody we love 24/7. And it is really amazing. The opportunities for face chatting, Skyping, texting, talking, video chatting are phenomenal. And every way in which we can use them to strengthen our relationships, and use tech as an ally to strengthen your school communities, are fabulous. But after smartphones came out, I decided I want to do some research, sort of like, push the pause button and look, are we using these very powerful devices to be our best selves? And what's happening in our relationships? And the paradox, of course, is that these very devices that connect us and make it possible to connect 24/7 are also straining our relationships profoundly, profoundly. And they are also deleting boundaries. We have lost the boundary between home and school. We have lost the boundary between home and work. We have lost the boundary between our house, our backyards, and the entire world for children who have unprecedented access to the adult world. And the World Wide Web is absolutely an adult world. And we have to think about, why are we giving phones completely loaded with no filters whatsoever to 10, 11, 12-year-olds? And giving them the keys to the universe, some of which is a wonderful place to go, but some of which is really not. And they are not ready psychologically, sociologically, emotionally, sensory, to compute, to deal with, to react, some of the places they get to. Now let's just do some more. I love the hand raise, and we're going to do a little now. Let's just play a little bit. How many of you have had the experience of having somebody else's phone go off? It's not your phone, but suddenly you reach for your own phone. Hands up. Look around. How many of you have had the experience of somebody else's phone goes off? It's not your ringtone, but suddenly you think you hear your phone ringing. It's been a while since your phone has rung, and you think you feel it vibrating on you, but it is in fact not. How many of you have had that experience? We actually have a name for it. It's called phantom ring syndrome. Now, what's important about knowing that we have a name is this speaks to something really critical that I'm going to talk about a little bit tonight, and that's that our brains interact with these teeny little things that are extremely powerful tools in ways that are different from face-to-face communication. And we think we are the exact same person online texting that we are face-to-face, but we are not. It is a different realm, and as a human species, we become and act in very different ways. And we have developed relationships to our smartphones that are actually kind of odd when you think about it. One more question. How many of you take your phone with you into the bathroom? Be honest. Thank you. Okay, so people say, is this just like TV? It's just the latest technology, no big deal. Well, let me tell you something. We act like toddlers with their blankies and their stuffed animals. We have separation anxiety without our phones. Now, this is really significant. Never before has there been a form of technology that we are so psychologically dependent on. We are psychologically dependent on these devices. For many adults, their primary relationship is with their phone. For many teenagers, they get their identity from their phone. What do I mean by that? It sounds so odd. Here's what I mean. You might recognize this in yourself. Instead of looking to the people around you, the folks in the kitchen with you, first thing in the morning, you pick up your phone, you see what's in your inbox, and you get a sense of yourself. Oh, this is who I am today. This is who I am in the world. This is who's texted me. This is my Instagram. This is who wants me, etc. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like you look to your inbox to say, oh, here's who I am in relationship to this day, in relationship to my world. Never before have we had such an intimate relationship with technology. And never before have children had to have parents with smartphones. Never before have children had such unprecedented access to one another 24/7, and never before have children had such unprecedented access to the adult world. So if we look at just how many of us, 80% of us, have this psychological dependency on phones. Why? What is it? What is it about our brains? Well, every time a ping goes off, it's a stimulant to your brain. TVs are not stimulating. Most of us fall asleep eventually in front of them. Very rarely do you fall asleep when you are texting. In fact, when you are texting, you get an energy boost. You get a little rev. And if you're texting and somebody doesn't text you back, you crave it because the human brain craves the stimulant. And once you start, you want more, like Lay's potato chip. Just can't eat one, right? So the other thing that we know is that stimulants and watching people with a smartphone, it's contagious. So you sit down in your living room and you say, oh, we're all going to talk, and one person reaches for their phone, and what happens within 3 seconds? Somebody else, somebody else. Which is why college kids have invented that great game where they stack their phones when they go out for drinks because it's so hard to resist, and whoever grabs first has to pay the tab. Great way of self-regulation. So let me just say that within just 9 years, 9 years is a short amount of time for cultural change, huge cultural change. We have created new cultural norms that are staggering to think about. When I did my research, I interviewed 1,000 children between the ages of 4 and 18. I was very lucky. I was able to go into 30 schools, 28 independent schools around America, many up here in your area. I come here every year to work in schools. And they gave me permission, and parents are so wonderful, and they let me interview their children. 30 schools, 1,000 children, 4 to 18. I interviewed 500 parents, and I interviewed 500 teachers, heads of schools, division heads, principals. I had enough material to write 4 books. I wanted to write one really respectful, not alarmist book. I am not an alarmist, but I'm concerned about the challenges of creating healthy relationships in the digital age. So we have new cultural norms. I'm just going to talk about 2, just 2 little norms in just 9 years that have changed our relationships with one another profoundly. The first one is this. You are in a conversation with your student. You are in a conversation with your partner. You are in a conversation with your child. And at the sound of a ping, we do this. Hold on, honey, just have to check. And we turn away. And we ask the person we are with, often who we love or who we are teaching, to stand frozen in time, as if this is a reasonable thing to do. And we use the phrase over and over, which children, 4 to 30, oh, I forgot to tell you, I interviewed 250 18 to 30-year-olds also. We ask people to stand frozen in time and just wait. And we use a phrase that kids of all ages, 4-year-olds, 25 to 3, 4-year-olds, all the way to 30, said they hate. And what is that phrase that we use all the time? Hold on, honey, I'm just checking. So what are we doing? We use the word just to justify something that's incredible. We are literally checking out, leaving one another, standing in the lurch while we go into another conversation with somebody we don't even know half the time who it is, but it is elsewhere and we are removed. Now kids, in my research, kids had all sorts of wonderful things to say about technology. And I have very little time, so I want to really tell you the harder things. We're going to talk about some hard things, because we're all committed to using technology to have healthier relationships. When you ask kids of all different ages what's the good stuff about tech, they have very age-specific responses. Little kids say, oh, I love face chatting with my mommy and daddy when they go on a trip because I can see them and they do not feel so far away. Middle schoolers say, texting is awesome. If I get a bad grade on a test, I can text my parents and I don't have to see the look of horror on their face. So you get it. Little people, middle schoolers, older folks, different good things. What was shocking in my research and very unusual in the field of child development is that when I asked kids, I would say, okay, you're the expert. What's it like to be a child growing up with a mom and dad in the digital age? What's it like to have a mom with an iPad, a mini iPad, a smartphone, whatever it is they have? And over and over and over, it did not matter what age kids were. They used the same adjectives. It was like hearing a children's choir of kids of all ages all across America singing the same song. But it was a sad song. It was a song of exhaustion and relational fatigue, trying to get their parents' attention. And the adjectives were sad, mad, lonely, frustrated, and angry. because they would try and get their parents' attention, and their parents paid no attention. Or if they did, they got angry. They didn't respond so nicely. So why does this happen? What happens? So when we are in our phones, when we are texting, several things happen to our brains. When your kids come in and interrupt you and you're just scrambling eggs and they say, we're going to be late for school, chances are your tone of voice will be, it's okay, honey, I know where your sneakers are, don't worry. But if they interrupt you when you are texting, you'll be, oh, no, hold on, wait, hold on, this is important. Don't interrupt. Well, we're not going to be late. Empathy drops. Hearing drops. Auditory processing drops. How many times have you tried to get a student's attention if they are texting, a colleague's attention, or your partner's attention, and they don't even respond? Hearing goes down. We lose track of where we are in time and space. It's called ambient awareness. I was interviewing some kids over in Hawaii just before Christmas. An 8-year-old girl told me this story. One day, when I was in the car with my mommy, she was on the blue phone with my daddy, Bluetooth, and she forgot I was in the back of the car because she told my daddy everything Santa was bringing me for Christmas. So let's fast forward a little bit. I was at MIT at the Media Lab. I had just left. I was in my car on Mass Ave, huge major intersection. Major intersection, long road in Cambridge. And this wonderfully talented MIT graduate student with unbelievable balance crashed into me on his bicycle while texting. So I got out, and, you know, are you okay? Are you okay? Now listen to his language. He said, oh, ma'am, I'm so sorry. I'm totally fine. I'm just so sorry. I just wasn't thinking. No kidding. So much for that 800 SAT or GRE or whatever it is. When we are texting, the focus, the urgency, the engagement with our brain, it hijacks our prefrontal cortex. It keeps us from being smart and thinking. Now, kids struggle with their parents. One of the examples that comes up all the time is, I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, my mom, my dad, they say they love me more than anything, and then they text and drive, which about 80% of parents do. And then I say, come on, Mom, come on, Dad, please don't text and drive. We learned in school it's really dangerous. And here are the most common things parents say to kids when they are texting and driving. The most common one, first of all, is be quiet, don't be rude, or shut up. The next one is, this is important. This is work. The next one is, tell me if there's an officer and I'll have you text for me. The list goes on. I'm an expert driver. Trust me. Don't tell your mother. So we are all having trouble self-regulating, managing our relationships with tech. But most of all, when we as parents and adults are so connected to our own devices and kids are left to their own devices, they either turn to their devices for de facto parenting and look to tech to answer their questions, and they give up on parents as people to go to. And as a parent and an educator and a psychologist, I don't like hearing stories about kids giving up on their parents, and I know you don't either. Now let me say, of course, it's not just parents who are struggling. Let me just give some parents in the audience and teachers and adults some thoughts about things to think about, critical times in your day. Some simple challenges for you to be more successful in managing your relationship with tech. First of all, no devices for anybody in the car. No Bluetooth for parents or kids, obviously, but no Bluetooth, no texting and driving. We have so little time with our kids, and cars are a great time for conversations. Cars are a great time for conversations. When you're on your Bluetooth phone and your kid's in your car, basically you're telling them whatever it is that you are talking to is more important than they are. Kids tell me they feel like they must be boring, they don't matter. No, we have another new cultural norm that we have developed in 9 years. It's astonishing when you think about it, is that we let children take devices to the dinner table, especially when we're on vacation. What does it mean to be on family vacation? No devices at the dinner table. We've seen such psychological and social and language And social emotional intelligence fallout. We've seen a real decrease in kids' ability to stay in a conversation, to listen actively, to listen empathically. Family dinner is the language lab for learning how to talk about relationships and help one another out. When you are on a device, and when I ask kids, what's it like for you when you're at a restaurant and your parents let you be on the phone or play Candy Crush, the kids at first say, well, you know, it's kind of fun. I get to play Candy Crush. I said, well, how do you feel? And so often they said, well, actually, it kind of feels sad or lonely. Maybe it would be nice sometimes if the grown-ups were interested in us. So poignant stories for children struggling with their parents. But they're not the only ones struggling with their phones, of course. Teenagers are as well. And I want to talk a little bit about some of the ways in which we see challenges for teenagers in their phones. Now, let me just say, the vast majority of the way teenagers are using their phones, where they're going is good. The amount of time we're on tech is really challenging, really challenging. Middle schoolers are using smartphones, iPads, whatever devices they have for non-academic reasons, on average 2 to 5 hours a day. High school kids are on screens technology for non-academic reasons, on average, when you add up all their different devices, 9 hours a day. They are on technology, on social networking sites, playing games, watching YouTube, more than anything else, including sleep, including sleep. So everybody is struggling with self-regulation. 78% of teens check their devices hourly. 72% of kids feel they have to respond to every single social networking thing as it comes up. 50% of kids, teenagers, describe themselves as addicted to their devices. 27% of parents are afraid their children are, in fact, addicted to devices. The average kid checks their phone 60 to 200 times a day, depending on who you are and where you are. Now let's just talk about what that does to your brain. Let's talk about what that does to the fact that between 14 and 25, you are still developing some of the most important neurological capacities to live into your intelligence that you have. The capacity for deep attention, the capacity for creativity, the capacity to discover in yourself that you can get yourself to the next level in solving a problem. The average grown-up checks about 60 to 100 times a day. But let's talk about teenagers a little bit. So what does this do for kids? It's so challenging. Because it's a stimulant, because they hear it, they want it, they feel they have to answer instantly, because the fear if you don't respond instantly causes what we call FOMO, fear of missing out. It causes enormous drama. Students are developing very different brains, if you will. Kids, you are the boss of your brain. When I work with kids in school, you're the boss of how you develop your physical strength as well as your intellectual strength. And when you split screen, when you are multitasking, while you are doing homework, you are not developing neurological pathways that will actually help you become your most creative, intelligent, innovative self. We know that social networking leads to really serious issues with wasting time. We know that it leads to drops in grade point averages, 20% of, if you're on social networking sites while you're studying. It affects your short-term and long-term memory. The way we learn, the way you encode information, there are many things to this, but the basic premise of it is called chunking. You learn a little piece, you add another piece, you add another piece, you go back and you review, you add a little more. Every time you take your head off a text that you are studying in and go into a text from a friend, you lose the previous 9 minutes of what you have studied, because the brain needs to chunk and learn continually. So most people go back to just where they left off, not realizing that we process over time as we are reading, which is why we see such a decline in academic performance. Now, the tricky part is the same part of your brain that needs to study is the same part of your brain that actually is plugged in, if you will, to your smartphone. And it makes you feel two things that are not accurate. One thing is It makes you feel like you're taking a break. I'm just going to chill, I'll get this text, I'll go back. Well, you're not chilling. Your brain is still every bit as engaged learning. It's just not studying history, it's learning what somebody said. You're reading language, you're processing information. In other words, it is not a break from studying. And the other thing that's really tricky is you don't feel tired about studying because texting is a little stimulant and it gives you a little boost. So you actually feel energized, like it was a productive little detour. But when it comes to actual memory and your capacity to learn, you don't hold it. And in the long haul, it makes you more tired. So one of our biggest challenges is helping kids understand and take ownership of the downsides of multitasking when they are doing their homework. Now, this is my most successful way in doing this with students is to teach them about their brains on tech, is to teach them the impact of what they're doing, and to invite them to experiment and play. There are all sorts of fun ways you can test your own memory. There are all sorts of ways to understand how you yourself as a learner, because we all learn differently, react to distraction. Multitasking is a myth, but it's so hard to get it because it feels so great. But the other reason kids multitask is a whole other thing. Today's children are growing up, adolescents, teenagers, 4th and 5th graders. I'm going to focus my comments this evening on middle school and high school. It's a whole other critical conversation about babies to 10-year-olds. Such big risk factors. But tonight we're going to talk about a huge challenge that our middle schoolers and high schoolers have to live with every day that none of us had to do. And that is that, for us, it used to be you go to school and you go home and you have a break from the drama. And maybe you call your best friend or 2 or 3, but that's it. Today's kids have a completely different experience in school. Completely different experience. They go to school where they are their best selves, and they are wonderful. They are respectful, they are kind. They are learning about social justice. They are learning about respect and gender and sexuality identity and how to be caring. They are so globally active in ways that are wonderful. And they have their teachers around them, reminding them to be their best self at school. And they remember and try and remember and work really hard to have healthy relationships where we acknowledge the dignity of one another and our differences. And then they go home. And at home, instead of having a break from the drama, they get online for accumulation of 9 hours. And they are on social networking sites that have the very opposite values of the values of your family and the values of your schools. Now let me say, before I dive into this is very important. On average, 60 to 80% of what kids are doing online is good. They are helping each other out. They are helping each other out with homework. They are helping kids when they see they're upset. They're actually saving one another's lives in some wonderful ways. Kids see someone post an emo post. They go to a trusted adult at the school who then reaches out. For kids who are growing up in schools or families where their identity is not welcome, they are finding their community online, life-saving. They are altruistic online in ways that are remarkable. They are diving deep into their talents, their interests, they're writing fan fiction, they're doing all sorts of creative things, 60 to 80% of the time. What I want to talk now a little bit is how we can help them with the 40, 22% of the time that it's really not good, and they are struggling. Because what happens is they go home from school, or you are still at work, but they are on their own, in their screen, in this world of Instagram, and Snapchat, and Ask FM, or Whisper, or Secret, or Facebook, where the values are the opposite of our values. We say be kind at school. We say think before you speak. We say be accountable for the impact of your words on the other person. Well, on a lot of social networking sites, it is actually cool to be cruel. In fact, one of the easiest ways a kid can get social capital, which is popularity at school, is to say something mean, snarky, or start a rumor on Instagram about somebody and get likes and followers, literally likes and followers, by being mean. And we see that online. We say, don't do anything that's going to embarrass somebody. Well, it's a culture of humiliation. You get likes and followers if you post an embarrassing picture or a snarky picture. And it's a culture where for many kids, again, this is not all kids. This is not all kids, but this is happening. And not only is it happening, but we're not helping kids for whom this is happening too. And it's happening in other ways as well. Other values are, on the online, the faster you can respond, the more likes you get, the snarkier you can be. And of course, we know that with anonymity, particularly in texting, the human species takes risks. Not the kind of risks you want them to take at school, but risks with cruelty. We are much more likely to say mean things to somebody when we cannot see the impact of them than we are face to face. Now, texting, of course, is a wonderful option to have. It's a great form of communication, and our smartphones are fabulous. However, texting eliminates two of the most essential tools for healthy relationships. And texting eliminates two of the most essential tools for human communication. The first one, of course, is tone of voice. I can be in a fight with my friend. She texts me back, S-O-R-R-Y. I have no idea. Is it snarky? Sorry. Is it a throwaway? Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry. Oh my God, I'm really sorry. Or is it like, I'm sorry. I really get it. I don't know. You don't know. And that's why texting causes so much drama. Let me say something, parents. Here's a little rule. Do not text your kids during the day at school. It makes them anxious. It is distracting. They feel compelled to check in middle school when they're not supposed to. And here's the biggest thing that happens. You text your child. How'd you do on your test, honey? That's your tone of voice. They read that text and they say, oh my God, my parents are so stressed out about my grades. I can't believe this. My mother texted me, how'd you do on your test? So when we eliminate tone of voice, that's one thing. Texting also eliminates something else extremely important, and that is the ability to see the impact of your words on the other person, to read social cues. And these two qualities, tone of voice gives meaning to our words. And in healthy relationships, of course, we have to be responsible and accountable for the impact of our words on other people. And just at the same time, kids are getting texting privileges, often with no limitations, nobody checking them with them. They are developing and growing up in an online texting culture that's mean and embarrassing, where it's a varsity sport to hack your friend's phone, pretend you're somebody you're not, cause a little drama. And furthermore, our kids are growing up, often being given smartphones, fully loaded smartphones. 10 years old is now the average age in this country, where they are getting a whole other education that as educators and parents we have got to face and deal with and really try and understand how we can help kids. And it is the following. 75% of kids by 7th grade are exposed to online porn. The vast majority of parents, everywhere I go, I do inventories in schools, middle schools. 60% of 5th graders and 6th graders in many schools I'm in have iPads in their bedrooms or a computer in their bedroom with absolutely no filter, and their parents never ask them where they go. And what we know is that many children are getting an education online that does not have the values that we would want them to be learning. Tech will answer any question a child has, but not in the way you would. And tech does not know the age of your child. I was interviewing a child at a wonderful school here in San Francisco who told me the following story. He loves vocabulary. He plays words with friends with his dad. He goes online all the time and plays, these games. And it was homework time, and he was going to ask his dad for help with homework. It was vocabulary. They do this together all the time. And his dad was too busy. Hold on, just have to, give me 5 minutes. Kids will give their parents 2 seconds. And unfortunately, the word that he was going to ask his dad in addition to his vocabulary homework was pornography. And this little boy got lost and frozen, a deer in headlights, in a very gory very gory, sexually sadistic, what we call in the field pornography video. And he said, that was the day I lost my childhood innocence doing my vocabulary homework. This is the hard thing about raising parents in this day and age. I was at a school this week in California. Parents were working so hard to protect their 12-year-old. No phone. Only kid in the class, no phone. Probably not true, but he felt that way. They monitored everything he did. And to that parent's real surprise, thinking they were doing everything they could, they discovered that on his father's phone, he was sexting. And to make it worse, his father's a teacher, and thought he was really on top of this. So my point here is that it's very hard to protect our kids. And our biggest challenge is to talk to them and create sanctuaries in schools where they can talk about this. My work in schools today is a challenge I will give to you to think about. What is your core curriculum? What is in your core curriculum? Let's think about what the core, the heart of the matter is. What are the tools kids need today to be their best self in the digital age? We have to create every single year, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 12th grade, in my thinking, sanctuaries where kids can talk honestly and openly and get help learning how to deal with the reality of the fact that they are exposed to the adult world, that they are being exposed to values that are antithetical to what they want. 68% of girls and 62% of boys, when they're asked about hookup culture, say what they really want is healthy relationships. They are being sold and given the worst possible advice about how to create healthy relationships. If we rethink advisory and rethink about what we are teaching them and the kinds of opportunities we offer them, there is nothing here that as educators and parents we cannot do. The most dangerous thing for us to do is to be in denial and think that it's not your child or it's not happening around your children. So tech is a tool. It's a very, very powerful tool. We have seen it used for phenomenal good, and we have also seen it used in very harmful ways. But as educators and parents and young people, the most important thing that we need to remember and challenge ourselves to think about is the truth that I believe from research and science from years and years and years, age-old wisdom, that children thrive in schools, at home, and relationships with one another, that work really hard to have really hard conversations about what a healthy relationship looks like, in schools that create time and space for reflection to talk about the world kids are growing up in, to give them the social emotional intelligence that they need to live into their potential, and that as a species, we thrive when we are in good connections with one another in real life. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. What? I have a paper on my back that says my name, Denise Pope. That would not help with healthy relationships if I walked around like that all day long, would it? The rest of the night is about solutions. We are going to be super positive. One of the things that we have at Challenge Success is a tradition where we honor student voices and opinions at our conferences. You heard from Catherine, an expert. You heard from Madeline, an expert. It is now time to hear from another kind of expert, which is a teen. At Challenge Success, we require to have at least 2 students on each team that works with us. We value their opinions. They're the ones going through this. They're the ones living this. They're the ones who know from experience how hard it is to find balance in a fast-paced world. They're the ones who have the best ideas about the solutions and what changes they can make at school and at home. And of course, as we heard from Catherine, many of these students have grown up from day one with technology. So who better to hear from now? We are lucky to have Hannah Thompson, a junior at Dover-Sherburne from Massachusetts High School, who will tell us a bit about her experiences with Challenge Success at her school. Give her a warm round of applause. You got it. Go for it.
Hello, my name is Hannah Thompson, and I'm currently a junior at Dover-Sherburne High School. I could not be more honored to be given this opportunity to share about my community to all of you. Dover-Sherburne High School is an elite public school located in Dover, Massachusetts, a small suburb of Boston. Students at DS take their academics very seriously and are very involved in our school, similar to many of you. 3 years ago, DS introduced Challenge Success into our community, and the progress we have made as a community is remarkable. In June of 2014, we administered the Challenge Success Survey, and in the fall of that same year, we sent our first team to Stanford. This past January, we created a Challenge Success Student Advisory Group, where students have been able to come together to further the mission of Challenge Success. In this group, we address problems on the student level, since we've been able to have the best understanding of the student body in a high-stress high school environment. As our headmaster, John Smith, recently said, we are tackling one of the greatest concerns of families, educators, and students, and this is the social and emotional well-being of our students. This is a task that needs a great deal of attention, and as a student in this environment, I can talk personally about how it has affected me and how I have learned to embrace what I have learned from Challenge Success. I strive to find the balance between my schoolwork, my extracurriculars, and what Challenge Success has coined PDF time. PDF stands for playtime, downtime, and family time. Though this differs from student to student, my biggest stressor comes from scheduling and time management. My typical school day consists of classes from 7:40 until 2:15, and then seeing teachers for extra help until 3:15, and then on to sports practice, or play rehearsal until 5:30. On the average night, I'm starting my homework at about 6:30 once I've finished eating dinner. Since I have a limited amount of time to finish my homework, I try to eliminate distractions as much as possible. One main distraction to me is technology. Whether I am responding to a text, checking my Instagram, or checking the score of the Thursday night football game, my attention is being taken away from my schoolwork, and more time is needed to getting back to being productive. This year, I have made a significant effort to limit my distraction by reducing my activeness on social media and turning all notifications off at night. This may not be the approach for all students, but being able to identify your own weakness and making an effort to fix it will always be wise. While working in their own classrooms, teachers at Dover-Sherburne have made an effort to change things in the spirit of Challenge Success. One way they do this is to emphasize the quality of each student's homework rather than the quantity of how much is assigned. My English teacher is also teaching us that being successful does not equal being perfect. She wants us to learn how to embrace failure so that we will be able to bounce back and learn to do better the next time. This past school year, Jessica Leahy came to my school to talk about her book, The Gift of Failure, and how to be a more resilient person. Her presentation helped us to realize that each grade that we receive does not define us as a person, but rather we should try to learn from mistakes to do better later on. This may seem obvious, but some students feel a lot of pressure to do well, get good grades, and get into that great college. Overall, as a school, we have implemented numerous new policies in the spirit of Challenge Success. The first of these is the no homework weekend during Thanksgiving. This is a way DS is trying to extend a student's PDF time, and especially the family aspect. DS also changed our final exam schedule for our mid-year and final exams. In past years, students would take 2 exams a day for 2 days, and then 1 exam on the final day. This would cause endless studying and unnecessary stress. The new exam schedule, now extended onto a 4th day, allows students built-in study periods instead of back-to-back exams. Another aspect of the changing culture at DS, thanks to the mission of Challenge Success, is giving students permission to take higher-level classes in the subjects that they love. For example, even if I qualify for numerous AP classes, I will not necessarily take all of them because I want to focus my studying on the classes that most interest me. The ultimate goal for students at DS is to teach them not to take an AP course just for the credit, but rather because they are truly interested in learning about that subject at the advanced level. And finally, DS has made an effort to bring the aspect of mindfulness into the school day. One teacher in particular has taken to this new idea. Each day before he begins his class, he has all students close their eyes and have a minute of meditation. Having a moment like this during a busy day to calm down and just be in the moment is very crucial to managing your stress and knowing what is really important. I encourage all of you to take a moment during your day to close your eyes and just be where you are in that moment. Don't worry about where you have to be next, and don't try to relive what has just been done. Just be where you are and who you are in that moment and enjoy it. I hope you enjoy all of your moments here at Stanford. Thank you.
So awesome. Thank you. All right. I do have to praise Dover-Sherburne for all that they've been doing. Hannah mentioned just a few of the changes that have come about from Challenge Success. They are constantly working to make improvements, change policies, and we can have a whole discussion about that another time, but I want us to get to the interactive part of the evening. So what we're going to do now is we're going to see some vignettes that are being acted by students from Piedmont High who weighed in on the topics. It'll sound very familiar since Catherine actually had alluded to some. And then we will give you time to turn to a partner, discuss what you saw, and we'll open up to the panel discussion. So without further ado, we are ready for our vignettes.
It's almost midnight and you're still on the computer. It's way too late.
Dad, we're on Google Hangouts and we're working on a group project.
You can have 15 minutes, but then it's lights out. Got it?
Okay, Dad. Sorry, where were we?
What? I posted this an hour ago and it only got 30 likes. Well, I didn't post during prime posting time. I'm just going to delete it.
Hey, TH. So glad you can come and hang out with Kay today.
Hey, Kay.
Hey.
Oh, sweet setup you got here.
Yeah.
All right, you guys have an hour, and then I want you to go outside. Got it?
Wait, Mom, just an hour?
Yep. Have fun. It's been an hour and a half. What happened to going outside?
Okay, so we're doing this in 2 parts. That was the first half. What I want you to do right now is turn to a partner, and you're only going to have about a minute or so to discuss what you saw, does that happen in your house, and then we're going to talk about ideas for how to help when those scenarios happen. Turn to a partner, introduce yourself, talk for about a minute. Come on back together. All right, so I hope you had some fruitful conversation. Raise your hand if any one of these scenarios rang true for you. Okay, so we are living in this world, and we're going to open it up to the panel and talk about some of these some of these segments. We can start out with the Google Hangout and the scene in the bedroom where she said she was working on homework. So what's the positive of having the technology there?
Well, I feel like the positive homework, and me especially if you're working on a group project or if you have a problem in homework that you don't understand, it's always helpful to have that other student in your class who can help you out. So I feel like having a mutual understanding of something always definitely helps me personally.
And that's something that technology now allows us to do, right? You used to have to go to someone's house, or the mom had to drive you, or the dad had to drive you over. So that is a very positive aspect of technology.
So,
yeah.
Am I working? Yeah. So one thing is it's in the bedroom, which in general isn't a great idea. It's, you know, the two things with the parents, it was hard to understand exactly what the rule was. You know, Dad says 15-minute good night, I'm out of here. And you can assume that the kid continued as long as he needed to. But I have a preference for not having computers in the bedroom because it leads, you know, there's no oversight and leads, I'm very concerned with the pornography issue because I see that a lot in my office. So I like computers in public areas.
Yeah, and the American Academy of Pediatrics actually agrees, right, with the clinicians here that all technology should be out of the bedroom. And now the kids are going to fight this, right? Oh, yeah. Because they all say, I can't concentrate in where everybody's running around. I need silence. So they're going to fight it. But that is one of the main reasons is that it keeps them up. Yeah, Catherine, what?
So it's wonderful and cozy to be able to do your homework with your friends online. And what's really challenging about it is so often you get off topic, for starters. It gets tricky when somebody calls you for help with homework and what they really want you to do is give them the answer, and then it's an academic honesty challenge, and then, you know, are you being uptight and how do you say no? So kids struggle with that a lot. That's something they need to talk about in school. And the other, I agree with Madeline, the best thing you could do, particularly with middle schoolers, is have a time at which point all devices are out of the room. If you say 9 o'clock or you say 11 o'clock, depending on whatever it is, one of the things that does is it teaches kids time management because they have to get their homework done. And let me just say quickly some basic rules about homework in the digital age, which everybody struggles with. And FOMO, fear of missing out, is the biggest thing that we struggle with. The best way to get homework done in terms of rules is to get your students themselves to set up some rules. And the best ones that I see students doing when I work with them are the following. Everybody downloads Freedom onto their Mac and their PC. Freedom is an app that says basically freedom from distraction. And everybody agrees we're going to go on Freedom from 7 to 9, which means you're not afraid of missing out. And then what happens, the other thing that you want kids to do, and this, it takes 3 weeks to develop this habit, and it's a really great one. Just challenge yourself to try it. Take your phone out of your bedroom when you are doing homework. It's the #1 distraction. Set a time, get your homework done, decide to meet up if you want online later. And what you would discover is that homework gets done efficiently. It doesn't go on and on. It protects sleep. You don't feel like you're missing out on everything. And you create a situation where you're also developing and thinking and memorizing and going to retain all the work that you've done. That is best achieved when kids learn this and get to self-design and experiment with options for homework.
I love it. And I think there's something that people don't know about the blue light that emits from the devices, right? So, someone want to talk about that? You want, Madeline, you want to say?
It stimulates the retina and makes sleep harder.
It decreases melatonin. It blocks the natural ability of your brain to produce melatonin, which is how we help ourselves fall asleep. What you want your kids to be is off any blue light for at least a half hour, ideally an hour before bedtime, and you want them reading from a book, not on a device. We read very differently on books, we learn differently on books, and we read more richly to ourselves in a book. Your tone of voice when you read in a book is richer. But the other reason you want to read from a book is that your brain will naturally slow down, and it's very helpful for falling asleep, in contrast to reading, especially with the bright blue light.
And I know for some of you have kids who have Kindles, you have Kindles. I mean, by the way, the blue light is not just for kids, it's also for adults. It does the same thing to us as it does to them. So there's apps you can get, there's things you can do, but if it's out of the bedroom at night, right, and if everyone buys an alarm clock from, you know, Target for $2, right, instead of having that thing there. So Hannah, either you can be honest or you can talk about your friends. Is your phone your alarm?
So right now my phone,
She's not on.
Okay. Try it again.
At the moment, my phone is my alarm, and I do see the same things going on. But I recently moved. In my old house, I did have an alarm clock, and it was definitely really helpful to me. One thing also with homework is that I always set a time, and for me, past 10:30 or 11 o'clock, nothing productive is getting done. So I know in my own head, I have to get my homework done by like 9:30 or 10, so I have enough time to shower and get ready for bed, because once I'm studying past 11 or maybe 11:30, it's not going to help me, and I'm just losing those hours of sleep. So definitely, I feel like setting your own time that each student can pick for themselves is a very good strategy.
And just so parents know, do you know you can yell it out? How many hours of sleep does a teenager need? 9.25. Yes, Bill Dement taught you well. 9.25. National Sleep Foundation says 8 to 10 hours, but that's every night, and that's a really great idea, Hannah, to say, okay, I'm not being productive past this time. This will be how I start to get ready for bed. Lovely.
So can I talk about when we wake up?
Yes, talk about when we wake up.
This is really fun research. Okay, so question to ask yourselves. If you share your bed with a husband or wife, first thing in the morning, which way do you roll?
Well, if your phone is your alarm clock, you're going to roll that way, right?
So if your phone is your alarm clock, here's some research that we know. We know that it is so important for couples to, about 5 times a day, check in with each other. And when you reach for your phone, you're making an interpsychic priority list inside of you, who and what matters most. And if it's your phone, it is whoever's calling you Madeline first thing in the morning, not Lee, who is there with you. And not only does it create a different priority list inside of you, but it communicates to the person next to you that they do not matter. And we know that if 5 times a day you say, hi honey, how'd you sleep? Or even if you pick up an argument from the night before, the likelihood that your partnership will last is better. So this is a very important choice, which way do you roll? But it's also another important choice regardless of whether you share your bed with somebody or not, and this is it. The way the human brain needs to wake up to be able to prepare yourself for learning in school, which is really hard, for dealing with work, which is really hard, for scrambling eggs and staying patient when you've got frantic kids, is to hit an alarm and actually put your head back on the pillow and scroll not through your inbox, but through yourself. It's called dealing with your own anticipatory anxiety. It's good for cortisol. It's good for your connection to your soul. Maybe you remember your dreams. But when we have those moments of check-in with ourselves, just in that semi-conscious place, we actually greet whatever it is we are facing in the day better. When you pick up your phone, you look at your inbox, you are much more irritable with your family. You are already thinking about work. You are that frantic tone of voice when somebody says, Mom, where's my sneaker? And that's not who we want to be for healthy family relationships. By yourself and everybody you love, an alarm clock.
I love it. I love it. Let's switch really quickly to gaming, okay? You saw these guys. They're not going outside. It's a play date. How much is too much? What, you know, I don't know. What do you do when you're the parent and you come in and you're like, what happened to going outside? What should the parent have done in that situation, Madeline?
You know, the 2 parenting scenarios, the parents don't follow through on what they've said. So, and that's really tempting. You said something I thought that was important, which is the kid's not going to like it, right, if you set rules. So it's a given that your kids are not going to like it. And I think it's interesting that, for example, when we tell our kids they can't drive, they just got their driver's license and they can't drive with friends, and they don't like it. We don't care, right? It's sort of like they need that kind of guidance still. But I think we're much more ambivalent about setting rules around media use because we do it and because we're not yet entirely convinced that this is a danger. I know my kid, I've seen enough statistics to know if he drives at 15 when he got with other children, he's at risk. So I think there's part of an education of understanding that this is really at risk. And then you have parents setting limits and doing follow through.
So we're going to do the next round of skits in 2 seconds here, but I just really quickly for the parents out there, how long, first of all, should you have gaming on a play date? I would say you want kids to interact face to face, ideally. There will be kids out there who are saying, I'm being social. I'm talking to the guy in my ear. These two were at least together, even though they're kind of comatose doing it, right? So how much is too much, and sort of what are the guidelines here? You're the expert, Captain.
This is a really complicated question, and I would say actually the most important thing is the following. One, kids need to come home and play outside. That's how you reboot and refresh, especially if they've got homework. Playing a game is not good for them. And we have what we call play deficit disorder. Stuart Brand in your community. I mean, this is very serious, and it's particularly serious for kids between the ages of 5 and 10. The next thing is you have to know your child's wiring. I struggled with this profoundly with my child. Part of the reason I did the research for the book is that there was no research on how the brain interacts with gaming when my now 31-year-old son turned out to be quite a talented gamer in 1998. And let me tell you, the conversations in my household were not happy. Because I could tell, I'm trained both as a developmental and clinical psychologist, something was going on with his brain and that game that was very different from anything else he did. He was more cranky, more impossible, and the arguments were more unpleasant than anything else. Now we have a lot of research. There's so much research showing us that depending on your wiring, you really have to think very carefully about how and when and for how long you let a child game. But if we look at the research in Korea and Asia, where there are over 300 therapy programs for children between the ages of 5 and 18 who are absolutely addicted to gaming, we can learn a great deal. The hardest thing is to deal with the dysregulation that happens when you say no. The earlier you start, the better, and there's tons of advice about it in the book. I'll just cut it short.
Read the book. Good advice. Okay, we are going to go to our next round of vignettes. See if you recognize these.
Hey, sweetie, how was school today?
Really good, actually. Guess what happened?
What?
So I was in Mr. Smith's room, right? And I'm sitting there, and I'm sort of thinking...
Hold on. Aunt Val just texted. Let me get back to her.
It's not important anyway.
Hey, how was school today?
Oh, it's fine.
Glad to hear it. Listen, I've got a carload of groceries out back. You mind coming out and helping me?
Yeah, in like 5 minutes.
All right, great, because I'm making your favorite dinner tonight.
Oh, thank you.
Come on, I need your help.
Yeah, I'll be out in like 5 seconds.
Oh, cool. Snapchat from Sophie. Wait, wasn't she supposed to be babysitting tonight? All right, let me check her story. Wow, I didn't know they were hanging out tonight. Thanks for the invite.
I was just checking your grades online, and it looks like you got a C in bio.
Dad, relax. I mean, it's not up to date. Those scores are never up to date. Just relax, all right?
Raise your hand if you recognize or can relate to any of those scenarios. Yeah. All right, so we're going to talk, again, lots of advice in the book. We're going to do a little bit of talking about sort of what you can try at home. But really, as Catherine has said, these are complicated topics and there's not easy answers, but we are going to give you a few tonight. So let's talk about Hannah, well, let's go first.
Well, one thing that I know I personally can relate to was the Snapchat one, because I feel like a lot of social media is about who's invited where and a lot about groups, and a lot of people end up being a lot of left out a lot of the time through social media. One thing that I actually did the night before the first day of school is I deleted my Snapchat, which a lot of my friends, and I told them, like, how could you do that, and what are you going to do without it? And I deleted it the night before school started, and I haven't thought about it. And I guess it's felt good. I haven't even thought about it, but I think maybe not everybody has to take something that extreme, but even thinking about doing something like that is definitely a good idea. So,
thank you.
Great.
Madeline.
I just wanted to comment on the girl who felt left out because we didn't do anything with the previous one about I didn't get enough likes. And I think what I see in the office is particularly girls whose entire sense of self is built around an avatar, basically, that if you try and dig down into who they are, they know, it's sort of like your point, Catherine, that you know who you are by what's coming into you as opposed to what's coming out of you. And I'm really concerned about young girls because popularity and looks and early sexualization, which we know has has terrible consequences down the line, is when you talk about new cultural norms, that's a cultural norm now, to look good, to take butt shots and boob shots and all these kinds of things, and it's no big deal. And the kids aren't shocked by it, and you know, higher rates of eating disorders, of body dysmorphia, of depression, all kinds of things. So I'm very alert for pornography and sexualization.
Yeah. I want to reiterate the positives of some of the things that we saw. So, you know, there are kids, as you said, who are finding their community online who would not have community. There are kids who are reaching out to help each other. There are kids who are seeing things and that they would have never found their people, right? So I don't, you know, as Catherine said, 60 to 80% of this is really positive, and yet as parents, we're kind of stuck in this loop of they're on the phone all the time. They're not listening to me. They're not doing chores, right? She wasn't helping. I'll be there in a minute. But even mom, kid comes home from school really excited. Oh, wait, Aunt Val texted me. I got it back. It was like Catherine's story, exactly. So I think awareness, right, being aware of this happening and ways to make yourself consciously think through what are my actions, right, is a huge piece. Yeah.
I want to ask Catherine a question. Is that okay? It feels to me, the shrink in me feels like there are such deep issues of identity and sexual identity, personal identity. Yes, we are all concerned about the kid who is distracted and not jumping up to do chores, but I'd like to ask you, it seems to me that in some ways those are worrisome, but far less worrisome than the real risk to child development, child and adolescent development.
I think one of the things that makes me the saddest is that middle schoolers now are exposed to things that I didn't even know existed in high school. And we've just lost a kind of innocence. And that children in middle school are exposed to things and behaving in ways that if they don't connect to somebody and talk about it, can have very significant impact. And you know what, the other thing that we have to think about is not only just what's happening in middle school and high school, but if we look at the college culture and all of our concerns here at Stanford, here at Harvard, everywhere, and the conversations around consent and the lack of it, is that that doesn't just start in college. That starts when kids are 10, 11, and 12 and seeing such profound misogyny online and seeing such racial racism online and using all unbelievable language that's so disrespectful in middle school. So we have to really think preventatively. And I agree with you, Madeline. I mean, we have seen, let me just say, since we have smartphones, particularly in the independent school world and the educationally and economically advantaged public school world, in 9 years, a very significant spike in anxiety, depression, eating disorders, perfectionism, social avoidance, and and binge drinking.
So let's talk about solutions in the last few minutes of this,
we can.
with all these people here.
Yeah.
Challenge
There's
Success,
great
right?
stuff to do.
Challenge Success talks about, as Hannah said, playtime, downtime,
Yep.
family time, right? They need to play. We talked
Yep.
about that. Downtime, they need to sleep.
Yep.
Family time, you need to have these conversations starting now, right? Does that mean that you have to see all of your kids' texts? Does that mean you have to be lurking in the background on all of their private things? These are questions that folks are going to leave here wondering. So we're going to do last words from each person. We're going to have these kids take a bow, and we're going to wrap up. So last word from Hannah. What do you want to leave us with?
I don't have any last advice, but I just want to say thank you for this great opportunity. And I've had a great time so far, and I'm excited to learn some more tomorrow.
Thank you, Hannah. Big round of applause for Hannah. Madeline.
Last words of advice. Get to know your kids. I don't think you can watch everything they do. You're not there. The point is to have them be independent eventually. Spend the time to get to know your kids deeply.
Excellent. Catherine. Thank you, Madeline. Pam. Catherine.
So if all our good kids, or many of our good kids, are getting into bad trouble. These are good kids from good families and good schools, but they're getting into trouble on the internet. What can we do as adults to make sure they turn to us when they are in trouble? Because the last thing you want them doing is getting advice online for how to deal with something, right? So I ask kids, what are the things your parents do that make you feel like you can go talk to them? Wrong question. The right question was, what are the things parents or teachers do that make you think you will not talk to them if you are in trouble? 3 adjectives came up: scary, crazy, clueless. Try it on for size, see which way you tilt. Scary parents are really judgmental. Oh, I can't believe you saw that. That's going to ruin you forever. I can't believe she posted that. She'll never get into college, whatever it is. You are your mistakes. Scary parents, this is really important, say really judgmental things about other people's children. If you talk critically and negatively and harshly and judgmentally about other people's children, that is the #1 way your children will not talk to you. Oh, you know, honey, good kids, she's a good kid, she made a bad mistake, you're never your mistake. I hope she can talk to her parents. Does she need a friend? Can I help as another mom in any way? I hope if that happens to you, you can always come to us. You want to be approachable. Crazy parents overreact. What? You weren't invited to that party? I'm going to call those moms.
Yeah.
They feel their children's pain and they want to fix it. An email to the teacher, but they really studied for that test, whatever it is. So you don't want to get crazy, because when kids are in trouble, they want us to be calm. They don't want us to solve their problems, they want us to help them solve their problems. Now, clueless parents, that's a tricky one, because it has to do, should you read your kid's text, should you not?
If they come to this talk, they're not clueless.
Exactly right.
That's a step in the right direction.
Total step in the right direction. So let me just say, be informed. Be informed. You have until, in my thinking, like through 8th grade, your children and you together, with them knowing it, should be looking at their texts. They say, oh, it's private. And you say, oh, darling, it is so not private, and this is how you're going to learn. Because every time you text, you're going to realize, you and I might be looking at this because it's coming to my screen. And it's not that you're policing them. You are actually trying to get it into their head, which is so hard for all of us to remember. We all have said something, forward an email to the wrong person, whatever, that it is not private. So you don't want to be clueless, you want to be informed. But most of all, the last thing I will say is, as your children get older and get into high school, your leverage with them is the quality of your relationship with them. You need to have fun with your kids. You need to put your phones down. You need to protect family time on the weekend. You need to think about your vacations. You need to think about, are you having fun? Kids everywhere tell me how much they want to have fun with their parents, and how frustrating it is when they have to remind their parents that they want to have fun with their parents. So the most important thing to do is to protect the precious time you have, day after day after day, and have time offline, always as a family. Have your living room be a screen-free room. Have your dining table be a screen-free zone. That way, when you go hang out, and they might come to you with the conversation that they want to have, the expectation is you will be fully present and you will have a wonderful connection.
Thank you, Catherine. Big round of applause. We're going to bring our actors out. I want a big round of applause. Kim Taylor, Piedmont High School drama teacher. We've got, yay, Kim. We have Vivian, Annabelle Eam, Andrew Hansen, Kay Sybil, and T.H. Williamson. Take a bow. Thank you very much. They helped us immensely. A few quick notes talking about having fun and precious time. 35 schools tomorrow. You're going to meet us in Cubberley at 8:30. We are going to leave you with a card with our website and a few parenting guidelines on it. If you want to know more information, we're there for you. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. You can donate if you're interested. We have Wellberry forms for Stanford employees. This whole thing will be on video in a few weeks if you want to show your kids or the other adults in your life. We will be signing books outside. We want you to buy the books and read them. And I want to just thank all of you for coming and taking time out of your Friday night. It's going to take all of us to make a difference in our kids' lives. Go home, kiss your children, put them to bed without their devices. Thank you.